Hello and welcome to the Majorly Undecided podcast. I'm your host, Kat Klaus. And before we get into today's interview, I want to talk a little bit about one of the biggest mistakes that I see parents and students making when they're talking about majors and possible careers. And that is, everyone assumes that there's this direct line, this direct path from high school to college to career. And if you change that path at all, or if you don't know where that's going, you're lost, right? So for example, my brother had thought that he had no idea actually what he wanted to do, but everybody told him he was really good at arguing. And they would always say, you'd make an amazing lawyer. You'd make an amazing lawyer. So he started college thinking that that's exactly what he was going to do. He had done debate in high school, got involved in Model UN in college, and became a political science major. And in political science, he assumed that he would go to law school because that's what a lot of political science majors do, is they become lawyers. And that's the assumption that we have as parents and students, is if you're a political science major, you're most likely going to go into law. But as today's guest will show you, that's not true. There's actually a huge amount of opportunities in the political science field, including not only being a politician and helping your community and making the world better, but also working in those offices, making everything run. There's a lot of marketing and data analytics and interpersonal connections that need to happen in political science. I'm excited to introduce our guest today, Vince Fong. He was elected to represent the 34th Assembly District in California, which encompasses most of Kern County. He serves on a variety of assembly committees for the state of California and began his career with Congressman Bill Thomas, working on international trade policy. As you'll tell in our interview, his story is fascinating. And if you're thinking about helping your community and making a difference, and you're interested in politics, or maybe you're interested in more data or marketing, this is another great opportunity for you. For nearly a decade, Vince served as the district director to House Minority Leader and Congressman Kevin McCarthy until Vince was elected to the state assembly in 2016. He's a lifelong resident of Kern County, and he earned a bachelor's degree from UCLA and a master's from Princeton University. He serves on the boards of the Jim Burke Education Foundation and Honor Flight Kern County, where he works to send World War II, Korean War, and Vietnam veterans to Washington, D.C. to see their memorials. It's an amazing program. So I'm pleased to welcome to the show today, Vince Fong. Vince, thank you so much for joining us.
Did you do forensics at West?
I did.
Okay, I want to talk about that a little bit too.
It's the only way I could get over my stutter when I was growing up.
We should talk about that too. Not because you had a stutter,
No,
but because
I was definitely afraid of speaking in public.
And
But my teacher, Don Vattel, was all my friends were doing forensics at the time, and they were like, "You should come do forensics with us." And I'm like, "No, I don't think so." And then, they finally persuaded me. It scared me straight.
Well, now you do public speaking all the time. You're on TV.
My father laughs at me. They're like, "We never would have guessed that you would be doing this." So it's kind of funny.
So you tried something new.
Tried something new.
It paid off.
Did something that I was afraid of.
So tell me a little bit more, like from freshman year to senior year at West, did you know what your path was? What activities were you involved in? What were you really passionate about?
When I was in high school, I don't know. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I loved the sciences. Math and science was my thing, and so I wanted to be an engineer. And so that was what I was kind of on that path to do. And then when I was going through high school, my favorite class ended up being government economics. And so Mr. Pavianen was my government economics teacher my senior year, and I loved it. It was great. And then I did forensics. A lot of my friends were on the forensics team, and so they were like, "You got to join us. We're traveling. We're to tournaments. We do research. We debate." And it seemed cool, but I was afraid of public speaking. So growing up, I had a stutter. Speaking in front of people was like terrifying to me, and so I didn't really think that it was kind of in my wheelhouse. But Don Vattel was the coach, and he was great. He was my English teacher and my forensics coach, and he was phenomenal. So he became my mentor along with Mr. Parvianen in high school, and kind of shepherded me through and said, you gotta overcome your fears. This is what you need to do. You need to learn how to relax, and all the things that sounds easy to do, but,
but it's hard.
It's really hard to do in reality. But it comes with practice, and I became pretty good at forensics and debate and public speaking. And so so then when I applied to colleges, I applied to USC, to their School of Engineering. But because I had kind of like a mini political bug, I love following current events because of debate, I applied to the University of Rochester for their political science program, and I got into UCLA to study political science. So that was kind of my two options when I went to school.
So you were just throwing it to the wind a little bit.
I did. I loved current events and politics, but I didn't know if there was any career in that. Mm-hmm. And of course, growing up, it was, you got to become an engineer. And in my family, most of my cousins and family members were all engineers. And my dad was a pharmacist, so he wanted me to go into like the sciences. And so that was kind of my push. And so to go into study political science was kind of my parents were like, well, what are you going to do with that?
How are you going to feed yourself?
How are you going to feed yourself? And so when I narrowed down my schools and I decided to go to UCLA, of course, I was like, well, I'll study, get my degree in political science, and I'll go to law school. And that was kind of like, okay, we're going to be a lawyer. So that's perfect.
It's safer.
It's a safer bet. You're going to feed yourself. It's a good career. And then when I was at UCLA, I had a number of mentors of mine that got me into the public policy world, to study public policy in different areas. And then in my freshman year at UCLA, when it was over, I came back to Bakersfield. And my parents said, you can't stay at home without a summer job. And at that time, there was internships for our local congressman. So Congressman Bill Thomas had an internship program, and I applied and got it, and spent the whole summer in Bakersfield, getting coffee and answering phones. I think my big project that summer was like programming the fax machine, which I'm sure all the podcast listeners are like, what's the fax machine? But so that was my job, and I met someone named Kevin McCarthy, who is our local congressman now, and he got me involved in different campaigns and in different ways in the, different projects in the community. So I really got the political bug then, mm-hmm. And so then began to pursue more of a career in public policy. So the next summer I went to Washington D.C. and interned in D.C. And then when I worked on the presidential campaign in 2000. And then some of my professors were like, do you really want to study law? Like, do you want to be a lawyer? Do you want to actually practice law? And I said, well, I don't know. I don't really think so. I mean, it's just the thing to do. Like, mm-hmm. If you study political science. And like, no. And so my professor at the time, Professor Thomas Plate, became my mentor at UCLA. And he's like, well, I got my degree in public affairs, public policy from Princeton. So you should go down that route. And I talked to a number of other folks, like Robert Shapiro actually was one of our guest speakers at one of our classes, and we got to go hang out with him afterwards. And he's a famous lawyer, OJ, mm-hmm. The OJ lawyer. And so everyone gets to ask one question. And so my question to him was, if you could do it all over again, like, would you go to law school? Would you be a lawyer? And without any hesitation, he goes, no.
You're like, wait a minute.
And I'm like, wait a minute. Oh, yeah, exactly. So I said, wait, this guy is like a famous lawyer, and he wouldn't. And he goes, well, if you don't want to practice law, like, you shouldn't be a lawyer. You shouldn't go. You should do something you're passionate about. Mm-hmm. And so at that time, so all these things were happening all at once. I'm graduating UCLA, and so now I'm like, maybe I don't want to be a lawyer. And I had people say, well, if you like public policy, like, if you want to work on the Hill, if you want to be an advisor, like, you should get your degree in public administration, public policy. And so then that's what happened. I applied to go get my master's there, got that, and now the rest is. And then I graduated from Princeton, worked on the Hill in between my 2 years at Princeton. Timing is everything. Kevin had just gotten elected to the state assembly, mm-hmm. So there was a spot open to work for Bill Thomas. So it was like the coldest winter ever in New Jersey, and the summers were brutal, so humid, and so I was like, I gotta come back home. And so I came back to Bakersfield. Bill was super kind and said, like, you know me, you know the area, you're born and raised in Bakersfield, come work for me. And so I came back to Bakersfield, was his spokesman for 2.5 years, and then he retires, and then Kevin decides to run for Congress. I run his campaign, and then the rest is history. Then I worked for Kevin for 10 years, and then the spot opened up to run for the Assembly, and it just so happened, again, the timing was perfect. And I said, people in the community were like, well, you should consider doing it. You're passionate about Bakersfield and Kern County, all the issues. And so I thought they were crazy. I'll probably still have my head examined when it's all over. But yeah, I ran, I won, and then so now I'm here where I am. So it's kind of this meandering, but I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. But at this time, I'm really blessed to have the job I have.
That's an amazing journey, and what it is that students don't realize that you don't have to decide.
Oh yeah. So Professor Plate is hilarious. When I was trying to decide what I wanted to do, and he was encouraging me to apply to Princeton because he went there. He made me do this. He says, take out a piece of paper, and I want you to write out your next 5 years. And so I'm focused. I'm like, this is important. And so I spend 15, 20 minutes. I'm writing down what my plan is, what I think my next 5 years is going to be. And then I hand it back to him, and he goes, all right, take that piece of paper, rip it up, and throw it away. Because it's never going to happen the way you want. Because you're going to miss opportunities that will present themselves because you're so narrowly focused on like this perfect plan that you think is supposed to happen. And so it was kind of an interesting exercise. Because he's right. I mean, the things that have happened in my life, the opportunities that present themselves, if I had just focused on what I thought was going to be my plan, I never would have tried I would have never worked on the campaign. I never would have met the people that have been super supportive and been mentors of mine to this day. So
all the internships that you did and things like that, what were the best things that you learned? Like what kind of skills did you learn when you were doing those? And you met a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
The networking, so the sheer networking alone.
The networking in and of itself is important. I think internships are great because it gives you the opportunity to ask people to be your mentors. And when I talk to students and when I talk to the interns that I have, that's what I always encourage them to do is find good mentors, because you'll never know when they'll come back into your life and be super helpful. And I think a lot of people was like, well, how do I find a mentor? Like, how does that work? And I said, well, you just ask them to be your mentor. It sounds very simple, but it's like, I want you to be my mentor. Like, sometimes it's not that simple, or sometimes it is just that simple, or sometimes people become your mentors, but you don't realize that they're your mentors. When I met him, he just kept on giving me work to do. Like, hey, I think you like this, and I didn't think he was mentoring me, but he saw something in me, and it's like, I think you would enjoy this project, or then you would enjoy meeting this person, or come to lunch with me and meet this person with me. And he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. So I think that's one of the most important things about doing internships is that. The other thing too is like you figure out whether you like that career, or you like the things that you're doing. What's interesting is that my older sister also interned for Bill Thomas with me, and after her internship, she did not like politics, and I did, and so she went in a totally different direction. But she did something. She has an appreciation for civics and government and the way the laws are made, and which is important. But she just realized it wasn't for her. And so that's another thing too. It's like sometimes you do internships and you realize you don't like what you're thinking you like, and then that's a good thing too.
Right, because then you're not going to study it for 4 years and torture yourself.
You're not going to study for. You're not going to go into spending years of your life taking on debt, studying for a degree that you didn't really want to do. And so I always tell my students and my interns, like, if you don't like it, that's information that's good.
It's not wasted time.
It's not wasted time.
And then, just like you said, she learned more about the civic process and how laws are made and things like that, which is something that she'll never forget.
Exactly.
Right.
And the other thing too is that those soft skills like showing up on time, working in an office environment, being able to interact with different people, like you don't practice that on a day-to-day basis, especially as a student. So being in a real world setting, and a lot of times, especially at least in my world, what they teach you in a political science 101 class, and then what really happens in reality is different. And being in a real world setting that's important too.
Oh, that's great. What is your favorite part about your job?
My favorite part about my job is I'm always learning something new. So the job that being an elected official, we're generalists. I mean, we are learning. Different topics, different subjects, different issues every single day. So an average day in the Capitol is like, I'll have a hearing on like a transportation issue, and then I'll have a meeting on healthcare, and then I'll be meeting some teachers about education, and then we'll go into the budget, and we're going to talk about the budget and what we should be investing in, and so all that is in one day, and so every meeting is a different topic, and I'm always learning. So I always say that I know about 1 inch about everything, but when people come and give me an extra inch of information, it's extremely important, because all of us, it's not even in politics or being an elected official, but we all make decisions, important decisions on imperfect information.
Mm-hmm.
We're always striving to collect more information. Like, and when you buy a car, it's like, do I know everything about the car? I should learn more about it, and then before I make a big purchase like that, or a house or anything else. But in politics, in being in public policy, like, it's really important, because if we're making decisions and we make the wrong decisions, then either the program doesn't work, or we're not funding it effectively, or something bad will happen. And so that's the best part of my job, is I'm always trying to figure out how to make things work. And maybe that's part of my engineering mind. That maybe I use that part of me that says, all right, I got a puzzle, I got a problem,
mm-hmm.
like, how do I fix it? And how do I do it in a way that makes sense? So maybe I'd still use a little bit of my desire to be an engineer in the job I have. I just never got a degree in it.
I would say, because engineering is all problem solving.
Yeah.
And so you're building things. You're just not building. You are busy building physical things, but not the same way.
It's all about. But for me, it's like do the processes work?
Right.
Are these programs work? How do you make it better? Are there gaps? How do we fix those gaps? So when we talk about, like, how do we solve homelessness? Well, it's like, okay, well, how does the process work? How does the one individual move through the process, and is he or she getting the services they need? And if not, then why is that the case?
Right.
And so try to figure out what that problem is. It's the same with building a road. Why does it take so long?
Mm-hmm.
And is the process working? And can we make it easier? And so definitely there's aspects of my job that I can still use some of those skills,
mm-hmm.
that, or at least my desire to be an engineer, lets me apply it to the job that I have.
You're just engineering society.
I don't know if I view it that way, but
not in a bad way, in a good way.
Yeah, and we're trying to engineer things to help people.
Right.
Yes.
Right. That's what I meant. I didn't mean it in a bad way, like we have robot overlords or anything. What's your least favorite part about your job? It's a harder question.
That is a harder question. Certainly, I would say from just a lifestyle standpoint, the hardest part of my job is just like the commute and the grind. So, I go every single day every week from Bakersfield to Sacramento, and so I start my day on Sunday night I drive from here to Bakersfield, or from Bakersfield to Sacramento. It's 4 hours, and I'm there Monday through Thursday, and then Thursday afternoon I get in the car and I drive, from Sacramento to Bakersfield. So that gets old really quick, because
mm-hmm.
You're just constantly on the road. I mean, I think I have like 146,000 miles on my car.
And every stop on the 99.
And my car, exactly, on my N5, and I've only owned my car for like 3.5 years. So that's the tough part. And I think the other part, I don't think it's it's the most exciting part of the job, but it's also, there are some really big issues, heavy issues, and you want to make the right decision. And sometimes there is no, you're given choices that are imperfect,
mm-hmm.
and you're picking between, multiple decisions that are not good, but the best of the worst, So that's always kind of a tough thing, and trying to explain to people like what you're trying to do and why it is the only option that you have.
Mm-hmm.
So
it is and people don't realize that there's not two decisions. It's not this way or this way.
Oh, yeah.
There's this huge gray area in the middle.
Exactly.
And you're trying to compromise and serve as many people as possible while not
Exactly.
Taking over here.
And those are like the coalition building skills and that aspect of the job. I mean, that's one of the coolest parts, because you're trying to build teams together and trying to explain to people what we're trying to do and trying to pass a law.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes, they just don't agree with you.
Right.
And so it's the education, it's the persuasion, it's the debate, and we have a process in our country of, it's not adversarial, but it's very we clash, and we elect people from different communities with different viewpoints, with different goals, and that's okay. It's okay to have a vigorous debate, but at the end of the day, we're forced to collaborate and figure out how to solve problems. And sometimes those two things go together, and sometimes there's a natural tension there.
If you could do it all over again, would you have gone the same path?
I like to think I would. I don't have any regrets of of any decisions I've made or down starting from high school on. I think I would have made all the same choices, for sure.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine doing anything else.
If you were giving advice to a high school student or an early college student, what would be the best advice if they wanted to run for assembly or be involved in politics or even just work in on a campaign?
Sure.
What would be your advice to them?
So the interesting thing about the profession I'm in is that everyone assumes that you have to do it in a certain way, and I truly believe this, and I've gone out and I've recruited candidates and encouraged people to run for office, and there is no one path. We need, the way our system works is that we want people with different experiences. So we want teachers to be elected to the state assembly. We want doctors and engineers, and we want parents and you pick your profession, artists and musicians, and so we are a microcosm of society, the way that our system is supposed to work. So we don't obviously want people that have the exact same life experiences, because we represent 26 million people in in California. So we need people that have a variety of life experiences. So I say to most people who want to run for office is to get involved in your community. And you can't represent your community if you don't know what's going on in your community. So if you're passionate about education, participate in and volunteer in a nonprofit, learn as much as you can about education. If you are passionate about agriculture, literacy, energy policy, learn and participate, and then go into the career that you're passionate about. And then, because politics in and of itself is not it is a career, but you are representing, it's a public, you're serving the public. And so if you're going to go into that career of public service, then you actually have to be involved in the community. And so I would encourage you to do that. And participate in campaigns, that's always great. The campaign lifestyle is, and the idea, the process of running for office is not easy. So having seen it from the other side as a volunteer and as a campaign manager, I mean, there's stresses on the family. There's you've got to fundraise, you've got to meet people, there's a customer service side to it, and so having that experience, going in with your eyes wide open, is always helpful. But I always say to people who want to run for office is that there is no one path. So if you want to be a teacher, be a teacher. If you want to be an engineer, be an engineer. If you want to be a doctor, be a doctor. Just be good at it, and then on the side, participate in giving back to the community, and then the community will notice what you're doing, because because we need people, we need talented people to run, but we all need people that are passionate about the community.
The office alone, you have all these different positions. So one of the biggest things that we do just in general is when you think politics, you think politician, right? But there's this entire team of people behind. I mean, oops. Not, but there's an entire team of people behind them. You have your manager, but then you have fundraising and you have marketing. There's a data component with your constituents, the customer service components. So what would be the main positions in in your office
Sure.
that different people of different experiences and skill sets have?
So my world consists of two distinctly different pieces. So I have an official office that's supported by the taxpayers of California, and that's my staff that work for the state of California for me. So I have a chief of staff, manages my my whole operation. I have a district director who is based in my community, or our community here, and she oversees like casework, constituent casework, schedule, everything under the sun. And then I have field reps that go out in the community and represent me. I have caseworkers that, like, if someone has a problem with the DMV or with a state agency, they'll call that person. That person will troubleshoot their problem. I have a media person, so they're out there helping me coordinate my message and informing the public of what's happening. So that's all on the official side. Then there's a whole campaign side that's completely different and distinct. And so I have a political consultant that runs my campaign and oversees that. I have a campaign manager, and then I have a fundraiser that helps me try to raise resources to pay for everything on the campaign side. So so for those, yeah, you're absolutely right. For those who want to get involved in politics, there's so many avenues to do it, and a lot of times we don't pay a lot, and hours are long. But if you're passionate about politics and civics and government, like, it's very rewarding, and that's how I got my start.
You have to learn all the different aspects.
That's right.
Right?
And, yeah. There's all the skill. There's so many skills I think that I never would have imagined I would have needed, but now looking back, I'm glad I did it. It's one of those things where there's blissful ignorance. Like, if I knew everything I had to do to run for office and to be in the position I'm in, if I knew everything, I'm not sure a lot of people would be like, yeah, I want to do that. Like, I want to spend every waking moment of my life doing all these things. But because you're in it and you want to succeed, you do it because it's just part of your natural rhythm of the job.
And you learn on the fly.
That's right. And we do that, and that's natural for everything. Like, no one's gonna know everything about their career, but because you care about it, it doesn't seem like work to you. It's just like, okay, this is just another part that I'm learning, another aspect that I'm participating in.
So you said there were a couple skills that you didn't expect. Can you name any of those?
Well, the soft skills. When you're asking people to support you, when the fundraising part of the job is unique. Not many people like asking people for resources and money, but there's a whole. That's an important part of the job. And then there's the coalition building side. A lot of times people think like, okay, I'm gonna run, I'm gonna get elected, and everyone's gonna agree with me. Like, it's like I'm right and everyone else is wrong, and of course everyone's gonna. Once I tell people what I believe in and what and why it's gonna work, and of course they're gonna agree with me. Well, that's not necessarily true. Well, actually, that's not true.
Right.
And so the coalition side, it's politics, and it's a team sport. People think it's very individualized because it's your name on the signs and on the ballot, and you're out there, but you need a majority of people to agree with you to get anything done. Mm-hmm. So there's 80 people in the state assembly. I need 41 people to agree to pass my bill, and if I can't get them to vote for my bill, then nothing will happen. And that side of being able to persuade and those soft skills of like, okay, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. I understand what you're trying to do, but is there some way that we can make it work? Yeah, I think that is a skill not really, that's not taught.
No.
And you can only really learn it by doing it. And that's something that I've learned over time in the 18 or 19 years I've been in politics.
It's having a vision and getting everybody in on that vision.
That's right. Leadership. In some ways it's their leadership skills. And a lot of times, people think like, oh well, if being a leader is like the person, the main person. But if you're talking about leadership, sometimes being the second or third person to help someone be successful, that's just as important. And my team that's around me and the people that that support my efforts, they're just as important. I just need to find them
Right.
and encourage them to join. There's a good TED Talk that I watched years ago, and it's called The Making of a Movement. And I encourage everyone to watch it. It's like a 3-minute video, and people always think it's like the Martin Luther Kings and the Mahatma Gandhis and that they're going to lead the movement, and they're very important. But if you watch this video, and it's a very simple video, it's like someone dancing in a music festival, and so they're flailing their arms, and not until the second and the third and the fourth person come alongside that person and show to everyone that what that person's doing is okay and that everyone should follow along. Not until those people show up, then and at the end of the video, like the whole park is doing what the first person is doing. But you need the second and the third and the fourth person to come alongside and say, that person's idea is a good idea, and we should all join along. And so if I can be that person, or if someone can be that person for me, like that's an important skill that will make things work a little better.
And it's not taught.
It's not taught.
You have to
well,
figure it out.
those some part of it's natural, and part of it is just you learn through experience.
Right. I want to go back to college a little bit.
Yes.
What made you decide to go to grad school?
That's a good question. So I went straight through. So I'm one of the few people. A lot of times even for me, I suggest to people that maybe they take 3 or 4 years, get some work experience, and go to grad school. But a lot of times, you know yourself better than anybody else. And if you know you're going to start working and establish a career and a job, and you're just not going to go back to school, like that was me. I just knew that if I had, got an apartment in LA and started working and, established a life for myself, that it would have been a little harder to give up that life and say, okay, I'm just going to give up everything and change and just go to school. Mm-hmm. So for me, that was my thing, is like, I just had to go, just to get it done, like tear the Band-Aid off and just go. The other thing too was I knew that the career I wanted to work on the Hill. That was my dream job, and I needed to distinguish myself from other candidates and other folks. And so I believed that getting a public policy degree and showing that I had the critical thinking skills and the ability to be an valuable asset to any team on Capitol Hill, I needed that degree. And so that was why I went to grad school. And then everyone that I worked with encouraged me to do it. Mm-hmm. And I think and that's the important part, is like, what's going to make me the most sought after person. And they said, well, everyone's going to have an undergrad degree, and everyone's going to have worked on the campaign. That's we look for that, but everyone's going to have that. So what's going to make you stand out? And so having a graduate degree was going to be that.
We talked a little bit before we started recording about you originally thought that you might go to UT Austin, mm-hmm. and because the Bush campaign was pulling people, and then your dad kind of set you aside and said, maybe Princeton would be a good idea. And so you're at Princeton, and it was everybody on the Clinton campaign. Yeah. And so do you regret not going to UT Austin? And then what did you learn the most when you were at Princeton?
So the interesting thing about any big decision, whether it's going to grad school or anything else, it's like should I have gone? Is it would I have been better off going the other way? And I never think that's it's kind of almost like it's hard to do, because your mind's gonna dwell on it all the time. So I always think you make a decision, you make the best decisions you have, and you move forward. I think that if I had gone to UT Austin, I think I would have been equally successful versus going to Princeton. You get, as I said before, you make the best decision you can. At that time, I think my father and my professors and the people I was working with were like, who has the best network, and it's going to give you the best opportunity to go get the job you want. And at that time, it was to work on the Hill. And so being closer to Washington, D.C., and having professors who had the experience, it was interesting. I didn't even think about this, but when I was going to Princeton, but my economics professor at Princeton ended up being Ben Bernanke. When I was there, he ended up being interviewed to be the chair of the Fed. It was super cool, but it's like, oh, okay, well, that's what you get when you go to a school like that. Now, of course, if I went to UT Austin, there were so many people from the school that was going to work in the White House as well. So it's one of those things where I don't think it would have changed anything. I think I made a choice, and I think Princeton ended up being, ironically, the best choice for me. But for anyone else who's like debating what school to go to, I just think that you make the best decisions you can, you participate, you learn, you be as successful as you can be, and then I think let the chips fall where they fall.
That's great advice. Because a lot of students too, they think, well, if I go this path,
yeah,
it's going to ruin everything if I don't make the right choice. And you get.
I have a ton of interns that come to me all the time, and they're like, I'm weighing this. I'm weighing going to this school or this school, and then we just kind of sit through and say, okay, well, give me the reasons why you want to go to this, your first choice, and then give me your second choice, and then I said, okay, well, what feels right? Have you visited the schools? Have you sought like all the information? And like, yes. And I go, well, it feels comfortable for you. And then they'll tell me, and I say, well, then if that's the case, then go to that school. If you have any hesitation, then maybe you got to rethink it. But like once you decide what school you're going to go to, then commit. And that's the best choice for you. It's the best choice at this time in your life. And then when you go, be as successful as you can be. I'll be there to support you. But don't ever look back and say, okay, I went to the school, but I really meant to go to that school. Because at that point, it's gonna bog you down because you're not gonna focus on the school you're at, and then you're thinking all you're dwelling on is possible regret.
What could have been?
What could have been?
Right.
And there's no such thing. There's no way you could ever prove it. Whenever you can't prove that if you went to another school it would have been better. You just can't. Now, they're living in the moment, so of course it's like, well, 10 years from now they're gonna look back and say, oh yeah, I made the right decision. But at that moment it's such a weighty decision, and I don't blame them for. Any decision like that is gonna be important, but it's their first major decision.
Right. And we were all there.
Yeah, we were all there.
Oh, what happens? Is there any other advice that you have for our students?
My advice to everyone that I interact with is always twofold. Is one, seek out mentors, which I said before, and two, to do things that you're not good at. We fall naturally into the mentality that like, okay, I'm good at this, and I'm going to keep doing this. And of course, if you're good at something, it's going to lead you down to a certain path, whether it's career or anything else. But sometimes you need to do things that you're not good at to make you kind of a more well-rounded person or candidate that will help you in the career that you actually want to go to. So if you are good at math, like focus on the social sciences. If you're good at social sciences, focus on the math. If you're not good at languages, learn a language, because you never know what you're gonna need. If you are an introvert, try to push yourself to be more extroverted. If you're an extrovert, well, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. You want to be more introverted, but you want to learn skills and volunteer, and you never know what you're gonna. Sometimes I laugh because a lot of my friends who have great jobs and careers now, they're like, I never thought I would be in this career. I thought I was always doing something else, but they ended up doing something, fell in love with it. I have friends who are photographers who started out like just taking photos for fun on the side, and then all of a sudden just loved it, and then decided to go into photography, and then moved away from what they thought they were going to be. My college roommate at UCLA, my best friend still, he was a bioscience major when we were roommates together, and then graduated philosophy at UCLA. And I was telling him that I was going to public policy school, and he always kind of like, chuckled at the idea of like, going to public policy school. But then 2 years later, he went to go work. He was looking for grad schools, and he went to public policy school. And he focused on the Asian Pacific region and economics. And then he got a job at Apple, and he was worked for Apple for a number of years. So this guy started from wanting to be a doctor and a scientist, and ending up working at Apple. But he just kind of, as he got more skills and learned, and he took language classes, and he learned studied philosophy, and after a while he just became a great critical thinker. And then at that point, everyone wanted him.
Right.
Everyone wanted him to like, oh, you're gonna come here and you have this great skills, and you can look at problems and you can figure it out. And though he kind of went a wholly different direction. So that was always my advice to students is that, if you're not good at it, like if you're not good at math, like don't give up on math. You may want to take more math, to be quite honest. If you're not good at languages, stick with it. It's always easy to say like, oh, I don't like it, and then I'm not going to do it. And then, now for me, like I would love to. I'm still always trying to learn Spanish, but if I had just focused on it a little bit more in high school, I think it would have been helped me now. So.
But in high school, you're thinking like, I don't like this class.
Yeah, I want an extra class. I
Right.
want a TA period, but I tested out of Spanish at UCLA, which I got the bare minimum on the placement test. But part of me was like, maybe I should have actually continued to take a language at UCLA, even though I tested out of it. But I wasn't thinking that long term at the time that
Right.
I would be in the situation I'm in, or that I would need it. But I regret the fact that I would love to speak more languages. Maybe it's a skill I need to work on still.
You still time.
That's right, plenty of time.
You can get Duolingo on your phone. 5
I
minutes
have
a
it on my
day.
phone. I have that and Babbel. Was it Babbel?
Babbel, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm learning.
So that's slowly 5 minutes a day.
That's right.
In the last 5 minutes that you have.
Little by little, yeah.
Right.
But I think those are the two best pieces of advice that people have given me, and I've always encouraged people to do that.
Thank you so much
thank you for having me.
sharing with us today. Our students, I know we have students that are interested in political science, but then also students that maybe didn't know that they would possibly, be
we have
interested.
internships in our office, so if any of the students in high school, a lot of the internships always focus on like being in college first, but we take high school students that just want to dabble or to see if they like government and politics, and so if they want to, we'd love to have them come work for us.
I would also say that as a citizen, it's important to know how laws are made and, just participating in the process in general, because it does affect your daily life, especially at the local and the state level.
Absolutely.
We see it immediately.
I find that when the students that come through our office, even though they may not like politics or the way things are, they now have appreciation, like this is how I can change things. And they become more well-rounded citizens. They're more informed, and then that translates to how they interact with other peers and to their parents. Because within the millennial younger population, we want them to be leaders too, for sure. Because as we get older, they're taking over,
right? And
so we need to begin to really mold and mentor our talented young leaders. I don't even say future leaders, because they can be leaders without being elected.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Vince, thank you again so much for your insight and sharing your story with our listeners. I'm sure that they got a lot out of it, and there are so many opportunities in political science, in politics, in getting involved in your community, as you've shown us today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. Listeners, if you're interested, we've posted in the show notes a couple of programs just to get you started thinking about the opportunities out there, both in political science and in public policy. So you can look a little bit more in the show notes, visit some of those universities' websites, and see if this might be something that you might be interested in. Until next time, thank you so much for listening. You can follow us on social media or reach out to us, info@majorlyundecided.com. Be sure to subscribe, and if you're enjoying the show, please leave us a review. And as always, you can always find us on our website, majorlyundecided.com, where you'll find more free guides to discovering your major, resources, and of course, this episode. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.